our meeting tonight to do a follow-up from the NSA at Home conference. The WeStutter at Work team, we presented the workshop on stuttering and career success last week. So we ran out of time at the end, so we wanted to be able to come together and answer some questions that we know folks might have had. So here is our team, and I'll let us go in and introduce myself. So my name is Carl Coffey, and I live in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
I'm John Moore, and I live in Greenville, South Carolina.
I'm Derek Mitchell, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia.
My name is Catherine Maroney, and I'm in Pasadena, California.
And my name is Frank Steckel, and I live in Highland Park, New Jersey.
I am Haley Kawayo, and I live in Alexandria, Virginia.
Awesome. So that is our crew, and we're gonna get right into it and start answering some of your questions. So the first question that I'm going to throw to the group is, when and how should I let the interviewer know that I stutter?
My advice would be to mention your involvement with the NSA in your resume to do a very soft disclosure there.
Mm-hmm.
And mention your stutter early on in the interview itself.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to agree with Catherine. I think that the earlier you can let the interviewer or interviewers know that you stutter, the more likely you are going to be to feel like you can really focus on your answers and saying what you want to say versus the way that you say it. From my personal experience, I have really been afraid of disclosing my stuttering for a long time. I didn't want people to think that I knew less than I did. And so I didn't disclose, and that caused me to feel a lot more stress because I was wondering what people were thinking of me, if they thought that I was overly nervous, which I probably was, or if I didn't know the material or didn't know enough about my experiences to share why I'd be a good fit for the job.
Yeah, and another not other important and 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 be, benefit to disclosing and is that it tells tells the tells he 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 tells the in 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 interviewer that or not 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 shamed by it, and they will then pick up 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 the same attitude from you.
Awesome. That's good advice. Does anyone have any last, thoughts?
Sorry. I was actually going to chime in that when the recruiter contacts you, feel free to just mention it to them, that you are a person who stutters, and would they mind scheduling a few extra minutes to the phone screen, or to the interview, and that way that comes across as confidently matter of factly stating that you stutter, and that counts as a reasonable accommodation too.
You know, I'll chime in from just to build upon what Haley said, is this whole idea of disclosing, what it does do for a lot of folks is it will allow some folks that that are not comfortable with disclosing. Actually, it can be a good thing, because disclosing, what that is going to do is that it's going to disarm the person you are talking to let them know. But it also gives me permission to stutter, because I clarified the fact that, yeah, I'm going to be disfluent within the interview. So my advice is, if you've got a really good stutter, I would disclose it at your very first opportunity. Just let the person know. If your stutter is more on the kind of mild side, I would disclose after your first stutter, block, or repetition within the interview, and say something like, as you noticed, I stutter. I hope that's okay with you. It's okay with me. Never apologizing, but just kind of explaining. Then if you are someone who classifies themselves as a covert stutterer, that's a little more challenging, because you might be able to hide the fact that you stutter in the job interview. But being in the workplace, I know that really employers hate surprises. When that employee shows up on day one, a different person than they were in the job interview. When I say that is from the standpoint of, you might be able to hide it in the job interview, but you're going to continue to feel some anxiety and pressure on the job if indeed you do stutter and you did not disclose the fact that you do stutter from time to time.
I would just add one additional item to that, is that I think being able to disclose during a job interview also allows the employer, it gives the employer permission to discuss stuttering. So if the employer has any questions about your ability to handle the job because of your stuttering, it allows you to say, gee, you know, I was wondering if you have any questions about me and my being able to do the job as a result of my stuttering. An employer may have hidden concerns, which they're not going to discuss with you. But if you're open about your stuttering, then they can be open with you as well. And I in my own personal job history, I experienced this when an employer asked me whether I would have concerns about the phone and about making calls. So that's my feedback.
Okay, awesome. So something that a few of us hit on when we were responding to that last question, I know that Haley actually mentioned it explicitly, was talking about accommodations in the workplace. My next question is, can I ask for accommodations at work? And to kick that off, I'm going to ask someone to define what an accommodation is for us.
So, an accommodation is defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act, and they are certain tools or workarounds for some bodies, accommodations for their disability. So if some body stutters, they would talk to their HR department and their supervisor, and they would start that conversation. They will most likely be told to get their doctor to fill out paperwork for documentation purposes, stating the condition, and then possible accommodations. So they will take that paperwork back to HR and start the process that way.
Awesome. That's really good to know. And, to kind of build on that, I think that when you disclose your stuttering in the interview or in the job application process, that probably makes it a lot easier for you to, when you're on the job, to request an accommodation, because your team or your leader probably has an idea, that because you are a person who stutters, this may not come as a big of a surprises to them. Kind of like what John was saying. People, when you get to the job on the first day, they don't want to be surprised or blindsided by something. So this could be another way that disclosing your stuttering could be helpful as well.
I just wanted to add as well that there are a number of resources available as well that you could explore to see, what kind of job accommodation might be helpful. There's the job accommodation network, JAN, which is a federally funded, federally funded resource. And in fact, I looked it up. You can find it at askjan.org. There was also a webinar that we did at WeStutter at Work that discussed job accommodations as well. And there's also an upcoming webinar, I think July 26th. Is that true on the 30th anniversary of the ADA and stuttering and the ADA, which I'm sure we'll get into the job accommodation area as well. So that might be something to check out.
Awesome. You plugged a lot of really good resources there, Frank. So I'm appreciative of that. All right. Does anyone else have any other thoughts on accommodations before we move on to the next question and topic? All right. I will take your silence as no, as my friend at work always says. All right. So my next question is, what's the best way to tackle introductions?
I'll take that one. I think that the most important thing to keep in mind is that on that first day of work, expect anything, because that first round of introductions on that first day has gone a variety of ways in my personal experience. On some jobs, they've taken me around individually to each person in my department and introduced me on a one-on-one basis. At other jobs, I've been introduced at departmental meetings in front of everyone who I would be working with, and in some cases it's a combination of both. And most recently at my last job, we had a morning huddle every day, where my department would get together, talk about our issues that we're dealing with, and just bounce ideas off of each other. And when that started, anybody who was new, their first day, they would have to stand in the middle of that huddle and introduce themselves. Now that's intimidating for a person who doesn't have a stutter, because being surrounded by a group of strangers on the first day of work is very intimidating. So I would say be ready for anything, and just keep in mind that you're there for a reason, that they picked you for that position because they found you to be competent and qualified. So be confident in being there and your ability to do the job, even if you may stutter when introducing yourself. Be confident. Be confident in the fact that you do deserve to be there, and that you are there for a reason, and just use those introductions as a way to advertise if you want to, and to really get comfortable with your new coworkers.
I totally agree with what Derek just said. I just want to add, even earlier than the first day on the job, when you're going for the job interview, and I was once in a I was a manager for a period of time, and was in was on the other side of the desk, and I know I've gone through periods of my life where I had a problem saying my name. And I think when you're going for the job interview, some of us have problems saying our name. So it might be tempting to say, hello, my name is Frank, or whatever. But I think it's important, even if you have a problem saying your name, that would be the point to disclose. You know, if you're concerned about stuttering on your name, I think it's important to say your name. Hello, my name is Frank Steckel. How do you do? And if that's a concern, if you're afraid you might stutter, you say, gee, you know, a lot of people aren't aware that saying names is really hard for some people who stutter, and that's me. So I just want to add that.
Awesome. There was something that one of our teammates, Charlie, had given us that was an example that I think would be really fitting to use in this particular circumstance, like when you're introducing yourself to your team or in a meeting, and it kind of goes along the same lines of what Frank was mentioning, and it's to not be afraid to stutter and to let folks know that you stutter. So something that you could consider doing would be saying something like, you know, hi, it's really nice to meet all of you. My name is Carl, and I'm a person who stutters. For some of you, you may know that, and for the rest of you, you may just be finding out. I'm going to be the new XYZ, you know, and so that could be a way to, you know, put yourself out there, to let folks know that you stutter, and to show folks that it's not a problem for you, and so it shouldn't be a problem for them either.
So I'm going to add on to that. We who stutter have a responsibility. We need to educate people about us who stutter. When we have that personal connection with folks, explaining we stutter, that helps to pave the road for those that follow us, and that they get to better understand that, wait a minute, wait a minute, they're actually talkative, they're intelligent, smart, they have something to add. They aren't all of these things that I thought they were. So to me, when we disclose we stutter, we don't just do it for ourselves. We do it for every person who stutters, because our job as a person who stutters is to educate society about us, about stuttering, and demystify those false assumptions that people who stutter are incapable, not smart, and have a hard time contributing to society, because that's our job, to help to reduce those stigmas, and that can be done through disclosure and conversation.
Who's the beautiful furball?
I'm pretty sure that if I had the door to my office open, that one of my cats would probably be in here as well. So I'm sure they're probably upset that they don't get as much screen time as John's cat is.
Okay, so maybe not the screen time, but we certainly heard a dog of Haley's slurping up some water during the thing.
Yeah, the water bowl is like right next to me, so I was like, oh man, it's gonna be loud. Sorry guys.
It's all good. No, because why? This makes us all real, just like our stutters makes ourselves real. People people
Yeah.
can relate to us because I got Jane. She's tired of me getting the spotlight. Jane wants the spotlight. So it's all about Jane. So, you know.
I love it. That's awesome. All right. So our next question is, what can I do to ensure that I give a good presentation?
I can start off on that one. I know that that the first thing that we think about when we hear the word speech or presentation is, what is my study going to be like? Like, am I going to is it going to be a rough speech day? Will I be able to get my words out? How is the audience going to react? And that, I'm not saying that shouldn't be a concern, but I think that that should be the last thing that we are concerned about when preparing for a presentation. I think the most important thing to think about and address is do you have the appropriate knowledge for the topic that you're speaking about? Because ultimately, that's what will allow you to hit the objective of your presentation. Is if you can talk about it thoroughly and deliver all the information that the audience is expecting, and answer all of the questions. I think the second thing is to have an understanding of your audience as a part of your preparation. What information are they expecting to hear, and what questions will they have after, and ultimately what are they expecting to walk away with? What do you need them to walk away with in order to satisfy your objective? And then I would think about, okay, how will I manage my fluency while I'm giving this presentation? But ultimately, go with the content as your number one objective, because I have seen people fluently bomb presentations, and they spoke eloquently, did not hit their objective, and it was obvious. So make the content and then understanding of the audience your top priorities.
So I will try to add on to that. I think Derek is spot on. Know your content. And that to me is about becoming a subject matter expert, becoming so deeply knowledgeable about some topic that people come to you to learn about it. By become a subject matter expert, it buys you credibility. And when I say that is, people will look past your disfluency because you know so much. And I think for people who stutter, we have this innate ability to want to know more, to be able to do more. And when I say that, it's because we try to overcompensate for our disfluency. So becoming a subject matter expert is a good way to know your contact, but to know your content. Secondly, communicating effectively is not about being fluent. It's about getting a message across. And if there's anything that I can say as far as what that is that let's keep in mind, we should probably economize some of the words we say. Not trying to say too much, but saying enough to communicate our point. Don't try to belabor things. Keep things short. If we are given 10 minutes, cut it off to 5, meaning as make content set for 5, not 10. That way there we've got some room to buy ourselves if we feel we're having a strong stutter day. And I would also say that disclose at the start of your talk. I am someone that actually, I give talks at conferences, and I always disclose at the very, very start that I stutter. That does 2 things, as we've talked about previously. Disarms the audience, and B, it gives me permission to stutter so that I don't feel I have to hide stuttering. And if we try to hide our stuttering, we sometimes stutter more.
Yeah, and uh, 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 and uh, 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 and another point is to not wrap yourself self in verbal circles by I do doing too much substitution of words. You will come off much more clearly. If you say the sentences that you want to say a instead of substituting a word because you feel a block coming on, and then doing substitution in number 2 because you feel a other block coming, and so it's best to stick with the words that allow you to make your point point in the best way, as opposed to going with the words that you think that you can say a bit more easily.
Yeah, there was something that I wanted to add to that when Catherine was sharing, it really made me think of, and something that I used to do a few years ago when I was still very much a covert stutterer, which John had introduced that term a little bit earlier. But for folks who don't know, a covert stutterer is a person who tries their best to hide their stutter, and they don't want anyone to know that they stutter. And the key objective that they have is to try and limit or hide their stuttering. And so I used to have a lot of things I would do in terms of avoiding people, situations, words that would cause me trouble. And a big thing that I learned is to not judge my not judge my effectiveness on my fluency. I used to think a good day, quote unquote, was a day that I didn't stutter. But I came to know that a good day was a day where even if I did stutter, I said what I wanted to say. I was able to participate fully, and I felt like I was a valued person of the team. And also another thing that was really big for me was to prepare. That's something that I think everyone has touched on, but I can't stress how important that is. When I was in school, I would have friends who it seemed like they could get up there and they could BS their way through a presentation and they'd be fine. But I knew that I would have to really know the material that I was presenting on, and just try my best to be an effective communicator, whether I stuttered or not. So those were two very big things for me that helped me. And I still have times where I'm like, man, I wish I would have done this a little bit differently, or I don't know why I held on to that word so long. I think it's important to not be tough on yourself, but when you look back, you can say, hey, that's something that I didn't do this time, but for next time I want to practice, or I want to work on that. You're always going to be able to improve. So you can't be too hard on yourself when you don't feel like you hit the mark every time. So our last question that we have is, how can I participate in meetings when I'm having a really rough day with my speech? I decided to save the best for last.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I'll, 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 well, what, uh, it's closing it, 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 in a light, light-hearted way. Will help to break the tension and get at people or in a slightly better mood by having a small small chuckle and uh, 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 and if and uh, and you using the chat box for for or Zoom Zoom meeting things will help you to make your points more or or quickly he he uh, uh, if your or or speech is 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 rock rocky to to the point that you just can't talk talk at all. And it's up uh, 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 up uh, 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 it's up to you versus how much you want to try to push through things versus deciding at the chat feature will allow you to make your points better. Because as we've all had those really really horrible speech days where you're or basically mute and uh, 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 so it's a judgment call. About pushing through things versus using the chat feature.
I'd just like to add, I know Catherine was speaking about having a virtual meeting. If we get to the point in life where we're able to actually convene again and actually meet in a room, I'd just like to say the question as you asked it, Carl, I mean, of course, implies that somebody has something they want to say in a meeting, even though they're having a bad day. But I would just add that sometimes, and I speak for myself, you know, I stutter and I'm in a meeting and I'm going to say something, because if I don't say something, it means I'm avoiding. And I don't think for myself, I have to feel that way. So if I'm having a bad day in my speech and I don't have anything urgent I have to say, maybe I don't have to speak on that day. That's just one thing I'd like to say. The other thing I'd just like to say is that at one point, the meeting formats we had changed so that we had a go around in the meeting format that we had. So everybody, you know, they went around in a circle, everybody got a time to speak. And at least for me, that was great because I had a chance to speak. If I stuttered, but this was my chance. I didn't have to compete in the meeting format in order to speak. And what I would say is that if you don't have that and you really have to really feel you need to speak in a meeting and you're having a bad day, if you could go to the convener of the meeting, be it a supervisor or a manager or a colleague, and just say, you know, this is not my, I stutter and I'm having a bad day, but I really want to discuss this. And what would be a good time for me to get a word in edgewise? I think that would be a good thing to do.
Yes, well, and that's a very good restatement and one of the points that we made in last week's presentation about the importance and of having me eating allies, that could be a colleague, could be a manager, but just having somebody who can and help to make make the ne necessary space for you to talk.
So I'm gonna take a little time to build upon that from the perspective of finding a meeting ally. So find someone that you know, and if you happen to be really concerned about speaking and really introducing yourself, find the person to your right, to your left that's going to speak prior to you. You can kind of, figure it out and have them say, hey, can you help me out here and do something like this. So they're talking, blah, blah, blah. They're done. And then they go, I would like to now pass it off to John Moore to introduce himself. Just that little simple act. I don't have to say my name. I get to explain things. That's awesome. So finding someone that can do that. Secondly, what I have done in the past is one thing that I learned early on. This is sad, but people laugh at us who stutter. And so I learned in my childhood, it's better to have people laughing with me, not at me. So I became a class clown. I was always trying to find a joke. So what I end up doing now, still to this day, is I try to find the humor. And if I am going to introduce myself, suppose that Derek was introducing himself prior to me. Derek talked about his love of chocolate chip cookies. And I go, well, okay, and he's done. Now it's to me. I'm going like, oh, smokes, I got to talk now. I go, I don't like chocolate chip cookies as much as Derek, but I do love blank type of cookies. Just saying that sort of a callback, segueing into it, just gives me this little space to feel comfortable, and people are going to laugh. Just kind of hearing that laughter just gives me confidence to go, okay, you know what? I'm good, because they're not laughing at me, they're laughing with me. Finally, to kind of dovetail off of but to counter what Frank said. I had a boss tell me a long time ago, this was someone special to me. This person back in 1995 hired me into Starbucks coffee. I had a very good, strong stutter then. This person believed in me for some reason. And she told me early on, John, price of admission is participation. If you get invited to a meeting, I want you to participate. And having a champion, having a boss tell me that price of admission is participation, that gave me some confidence to say, okay, I'm going to most likely stutter. But you know what? I've been invited to this meeting. My perspective needs to be included.
Wow.
Yes, and 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 the point about out about out about having people laugh laughing with you, who happens to be crucial. When I went to a professional conference last year. There was a live transcriber. So when I got up, 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 up to give my talk. The very very first thing that I said is that I turned to the transcriber and said that and I stutter and I'm good going to owe you who a a a a a a big bottle oh bottle of 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 some nice whiskey and the audience and 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 cracked up and that one comment and changed the entire at 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 atmosphere and and that made me feel so much more or com comfortable too. So 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 the power of humor and 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 showing others that we're able to find some humor in this can be absolutely crucial.
For sure. So I'm gonna open it up for folks to make last comments if they like before we close out. Does anyone have any final thoughts that they want to leave us with?
I would say that regardless of any of these employment topics that we're discussing at any given time, I think above all, it's important to understand what your worth is and what value that you have to offer. And when you keep that in mind and understand what you're capable of accomplishing, I think that your fluency, while it might still be a concern, will be secondary to your confidence in what you have to offer to a company.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's a really good point. The thing that I would let people know is something that my parents reminded me of a really long time ago, and that I kind of have to constantly remind myself. And it's the fact that no one is going to care about my stutter as much as I do. People, you know, they have their own things that they're going through in their life, or, you know, they've got their own, you know, concerns and things like that. And so to me, my stuttering is always going to be the most important to me. But it's really important that I give myself the grace and the, you know, the understanding to know that, you know, tomorrow may be a really tough day in regards to my speech. But as Derek said, you know, that doesn't define my worth. I'm still a person that is worthy of respect.
And somebody who stutters can still be an effective communicator too. And just because somebody is fluent, it doesn't automatically make them a good communicator. So, I mean, for the professional world, 99% of people won't care that somebody leading the presentations stutters. They are just there to learn. So honestly, just show up on those hard days and make it a goal to just show up and just say 3 things, not focusing on fluency, put stuttering to the side and simply make the goal as saying what you want to say. So doing kind of flipping that mind set from chasing fluency to saying what you want to say. That'll grow confidence, and that confidence through the professional world that is going to show to colleagues.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to our Q&A. I hope that you guys got something out of it, and we hope you guys have a great night.